What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Niners News here on 49ers Hive. My name is Zach Hernandez. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Llewellyn, and today we are joined by our guest co-host, Dylan Frazier. Today, guys, we're going to be talking about some recent news that Peter King broke about Deebo Samuel. Matt, according to Peter King's report, he could be out as late as October, which would make them miss essentially the first quarter of the season. Is that concerning to you, or do you think he's still somewhat on the same timeline as before?
I think Peter King's bored, and he has nothing better to do. And it's the off season, and it's slow, and everybody's desperate to talk about something other than what's going on in the country right now. I know that report came out earlier today, and actually Deebo Samuel already responded on his Instagram, and he said, quote, "Can't put a time frame on nothing you don't see working. Don't believe everything you see on the media. This God work. Watch him work." So to me, that tells me that Peter King is just, saying stuff. And this is what reporters do. They throw some bait out into the water and see if they can get a bite. His Monday morning quarterback article is like his bread and butter. That's what he does. He needs some stuff for it. There's not a lot going on right now. For me, if the player says that he's doing good, sometimes that can be a fabrication and you think, oh, players are always optimistic. He was going to be out until at least week 1 anyway. The way things are going, I would say he'd probably be back week 2, week 3 at the latest. So that's still in September. October, worst case scenario, maybe. But from the way it's sounding with Deebo Samuel, unless you hear something come out of the team, I would take Peter King's report with a grain of salt, to be honest.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, and this report did come out kind of in the middle of June, and then it kind of got a lot more traction today, and it was kind of confusing because I'm kind of like, okay, but maybe something else happened. But no, it turns out he was just kind of retouching on the situation. So, I mean, people are kind of freaking out, but at the same time, it's like that's kind of the back end of the timeline that he originally said. Dylan, do you think this gives a younger, or maybe not necessarily younger, but another receiver who hasn't been producing as much, aka Dante Pettis, a chance to break out?
No. One, because if we haven't seen it yet from Dante, I'm not expecting it. It would be a happy surprise, but I'm just not expecting it at this point. And I agree with Matt. I think that we'll probably see Deebo probably around right when the season opens back up. And even if we don't, let's not forget what our offense was. It was run the ball every play until they make you stop it and then throw to George Kittle. So, I'm not expecting too much of a breakout from anybody else. And we still don't even know. I mean, if it does take until October for him to heal up, we don't even know if the NFL season will have started by then. So there's just way too much to think about there. I think it will have started by then, but still, I don't think Deebo's injury will take that long.
Okay. Now, Matt, Dylan touched upon the running aspect of this offense there. Deebo is a large part of that. He does a lot of these end rounds, stuff like that. Do you think that we talked about kind of his injury and how it affects him passing wise, cutting wise? Do you think there's any difference with how it is kind of taking those end arounds?
No, and Jimmy G is going to have 4,500 yards and 35 touchdowns this year, so it doesn't matter anyway. No, in all seriousness, no, once he's back, they're not going to let him on the field until he can do all the things that he needs to do, especially with how sensitive feet can be from a medical perspective. They're not going to put him out there before he's ready. Because the worst thing that can happen is you have another Trent Taylor situation, where, something doesn't feel right. You go in, you get a second procedure done, and then all of a sudden you've opened yourself up to infection and a longer recovery time. So, yeah, for me, no, they're not going to put him out there before that. So once he's back on the field, he's going to be the same dog that we've seen, the same guy that runs into contact, that wants to bowl everybody over, and wants to make those big plays. Just pancaking defenders. So for me, once he's back out on the field, he's back out on the field. He'll be same old Deebo.
Okay, yeah, physical, very, very physical. Probably one of the most physical receivers we have on the team. Back to you, Dylan. Do you think that even with some games missed, he'll be able to improve, at least stat-wise, on his rookie year?
I don't see why not. We didn't see Deebo turn into any sort of beast until like halfway through the year, in my opinion. I mean, that's whenever he really started to get comfortable with the scheme, and it wasn't until around the end of the season and playoff time that we were like, okay, Deebo is the truth. And so I think that was just him getting used to the offense and getting used to the NFL, which is natural for any receiver or any position in switching from college to NFL. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he came out and was. It might take him a little while to get back going from the injury, as it would any player. But I wouldn't expect to see too much of a change. I think he'll still be that dog that he was.
I do too. I think that, he came like, I want to say like 20, 30 yards shy of topping 1,000 yards, which he would be the first receiver to do it since Jerry Rice, scrimmage yard, I should add, since Jerry Rice. And it's just a hell of a feat. And like you said, he really didn't kind of turn it on until the second half of the year. And it's funny because it reminds you of the second half of Dante Pettis' rookie year where he just caught fire. Matt, do you think there's any worry, any concern for a sophomore slump?
To me, a little bit. And the reason why I think Deebo really took off is because he had the tutelage of Emmanuel Sanders. He really took off when Emmanuel Sanders came in, and kind of, defenses had to play Emmanuel Sanders and be like, okay, well, we know this guy's established, so we have to cover him. Now you're going to line him up against, opposite of Brandon Ayuk, Trent Taylor, who we, don't know what we're going to get with him, Jalen Hurd, who we don't know where we're going to get with him. So it's a lot of unknowns surrounding Deebo, and because of the impact that he had in the playoffs, and especially the first half of the Super Bowl, I think teams are going to key on him and George Kittle and try to make Jimmy and the offense, beat them in other areas. So I could see a struggle for a little bit until Ayuk and some of those other guys establish themselves to take a little bit of the pressure off. So Deebo has all the talent in the world, and I'm fully prepared for him to catch fire at the back end once everything kind of settles down. Also, I know that Dylan says that maybe a Dante Pettis resurgence would be a pleasant surprise. I think so too. The talent is there. Everything that he's missing is between the ears. So if he comes in and can stay confident, there's no reason why he can't get back to where he was too. It's only his third year. We're talking about sophomore slumps. He had the sophomore slump to end all sophomore slumps. So there's nowhere to go for him but up at this point. So if they can get all that together, Deebo might tail off a little bit at the beginning, but I expect him to pick it up by the end.
Yeah, I was talking to KSBW's Drea Blackwell, and we kind of agreed, although Dante Pettis had a really, really poor sophomore year, he's extremely talented. The guy has it all. He's shown his rookie year that he could put it all together, and when he does, he's one of the top, third receivers in the NFL. He's extremely quick on his feet. He's bright. He's got great hands. So if he could just keep all of those aspects together, the 49ers have a fantastic trio of receivers in Deebo, Pettis, Ayuk if he comes along, Jalen Hurd returning from injury. I mean, we've talked about this, till the cows come home. If it pans out the way it should pan out, if these guys return fully healthy and they're able to contribute, this aerial attack is going to be unstoppable, and it might be a problem of not enough food to go around. So
absolutely. And that's one of those things where, like, everybody wants the Julio Jones receiver. Everybody wants the Odell Beckham, the clear number one guy. And maybe the 49ers don't have that. But what they do have is like 4 number twos. And I'll take 4 number twos over 1 number one any day of the week, So again, it does come down to that problem. George Kittle is the number one. That's where we start and end. George Kittle is the guy. If you have a number 2 receivers around him, I mean, sky's the limit for the offense.
That's one of the things that I actually love about our receivers specifically. And I mean, you could make the same argument for our running backs almost, but there's so many like what ifs, like what if this works out, that some of them are bound to happen. Like we can't trust that everybody on our receiving core, while they all have potential, I believe, we can't trust that every one of them is going to work out. But let's say a Trent Taylor works out. He comes back from injury and reconnects with Jimmy like he did. Or let's say Jalen Hurd turns out to be that beast that we think he is. Let's say Dante Pettis finally puts it together and returns to that form that he was in his rookie year. let's say Ayuk comes out and plays like Kyle expects him to. Let's say Deebo comes back from injury and keeps playing like he did. Let's say Kendrick Bourne finally takes that next step that he's working very hard to prove to us that on social media, he tells us all the time, like, hey, I'm there. I'm like that, and I am ready. And I'd love to see it happen. There's so many, if this works out on our team, that, I mean, statistically, we can't miss out on all of them. Somebody has to hit.
That's a good point. And guys, I think we'll end it on that. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. Our handles are below on the screen. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel, and comment your thoughts below.
Go ahead and click the bell for all your notifications. We're bringing you Niners news every day of the week.
Thanks, guys.